What's up, YouTube? It's Team Hollow Hunters here, coming at you with a deck profile with.
Hi guys, it's Michael. I'm going to be doing our deck profile on a new Buster Blader deck.
Alright, let's get into it.
So to start off, I'm only running one copy of Buster Blader Destruction Swordsman. The reason I'm running one is because he doesn't count as a Buster Blader in the deck. And for that reason, it makes him that much harder to search out. Well, yes, he still counts for the Destruction Swordsman for Whelp's effect. It doesn't mean, it basically means that, well, unless he's on the field or in the graveyard, he's practically useless for summoning. Next, I'm running two regular Buster Bladers, simply because it's the name of the deck. It's a Buster Blader deck. You can't run the deck without these. They're good for summoning, and they play off a lot of the effects. Next, we're running three Buster Whelps. I've considered cutting it down to two, but in the end, I had to stick with three simply because I've had those matches where I could use the third one and just couldn't pull it. And then finally, we got two Dragon Busters here. The reason I'm running two instead of three is because we already have three tuners from the Whelps, so we don't really need the third tuner here. As well, it's just nice to have that free extra slot. And then I'm only running one copy of Wizard Buster and Robo Buster, simply because while their effects are good, they're not as useful within the deck. Now that we're out of the main stuff, let's move on to the pendulums. To start off, I'm using three Wizard Pendulums. Their monster effect is you can discard this card and target one pendulum card in the pendulum zone that has a different skill than shown on the card, and you change the skill back to the original. But that's not why you're playing this card. Its pendulum effect is you have a magician or perform a pal pendulum monster in your other pendulum zone. You can destroy this card and then add another pendulum monster with a different other than Wizard Eye or Wisdom Eye Magician to that pendulum zone. So say you have this and a Pit Master or a Pit Magician. You can drop this and then search out something else. Speaking of which, I'm running two Pit Magicians in this simply because I don't feel the need to run a third. With Wisdom Eye, I'm pulling these out as pretty quick. Next, I'm running two Dharma Eye. The effect that you'll be using mostly with Dharma Eye is the effect to change the pendulum scale for one pendulum card on the field. You reveal one pendulum monster from your hand, and whatever scale that is becomes the scale of the target. Next, we've got two Jokers. Now, the reason I have the Jokers in here is, while I understand the pendulum effect is that you can't pendulum summon any monster other than Performer, Pal, and Magician, the normal effect is what you're using. When it's normal summon, you can add one Magician, Perform Pal, or Odd Eyes monster or pendulum from your deck to your hand. And then finally, the only two proxies I have in the deck right now, we have Mist Valley, Apex Avian. The reason I have this in here is, for starts, it's a level 7, which means you can use it with a lot of stuff in the extra deck. As well, its effect to bounce it back and negate the activation of a card effect really comes in handy. Moving on to the spells, we've got 3 Chicken Game, along with 3 Upstart Goblin. This brings the deck to a total of 34 cards. And on top of that, with Chicken Game, if you find yourself bricking, as long as you have the least amount of life points, which isn't hard with Chicken Game, you're not taking any damage whatsoever until your opponent decides to take it out. That being said, I've had plenty of games where I've drawn into Chicken Game the very next turn, and Upstart Goblin speaks for itself. After this, I have 3 Pendulum Cards. Now, the reason I'm running 3 instead of 2 is because I've had those duels where I just needed that third one and I've gone into it and been able to go off from there. A lot of the times I'll find myself with 2 in the hand, and it makes for a great discard card in the hand. Now, I'm only running 2 Lightning Lord stops the activation of spells during my opponent's main phase 1. Or my opponent's activating of spells during their main phase 1, which comes in handy for things like blind MSTs or something to that effect. Grand Mole, if you find yourself against an opponent who has a heavy beater, play this. It bounces them right back. And then again, the third gesture, just in case you need that extra draw power. Next, we have 3 Wavering Eyes. You're playing a lot of pendulums in the deck, and so to be able to use these, as well as against any pendulums that your opponent might be using, is excruciatingly efficient. On top of that, if you find your opponent activates one and you have this face down, activating it will allow you to get the effect off first before your opponent can. Next, I have 2 Lances, simply because if you find yourself in need, it comes in handy, especially if you come against a very spell and trap heavy deck. Finally, for the last of the spells, have a Book of Moon. Pretty self-explanatory. I don't have it in the main deck simply because I don't feel I need it there, but I like to have it just in case. Starting off for the trap, 2 Mind Crushes. This format, we have a lot of decks that are constantly adding to the hand. So if you flip this, say they add, say you're going up against Monarchs and they add a Tenacity, you flip this, they make them ditch Tenacity, it stalls them for a little bit. Next, Quaking Mirror Force. The reason I have this in here is because a lot of the cards will do piercing damage, so having this to change all of your opponent's monsters back to defense position really comes in handy. Grand Horn acts as as another warning or strike without a lesser cost. Starlight Road comes in handy in case I come against those matches where I'm just stalling and I need something to negate destruction effects. So simply put, it grants us Stardust on the field, as well as negates any effects that would destroy anything. Finally, pretty self-explanatory, a Soul Drain. Well, yes, it can negate some of the effects that you might be going for with this deck. It also allows you to stop things like Cosmos or Monarchs, which stops them from activating from the grave.
Alright, YouTube, this has been Team Hollow Hunters with a Buster Blader deck profile. Please like, subscribe, and peace.